I know it can be difficult for somebody in the mental health field, for instance, to talk to another professional. But then other people might look at it as I need to talk to another mental health professional because I understand how important it is. Tell me what that's been like for you, what your process has been. And, maybe it's not even another mental health professional that you find comfort in talking to, but maybe it's somebody else who you just consider a friend, a confidant, a loved one, etc. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about that part of your process.
Well, I've been kind of fortunate. So during my studies, I've had the same therapist, and we still continue to work together with one another. He's an analyst.
Okay.
He's provided support in this time, and I'm also lucky in the fact that my mother holds a master's in social work, so she's very savvy and gifted and has like the ability to listen attentively without kind of like putting herself in my moment when I need to be heard. So I kind of find myself to be lucky in that way.
Mm-hmm. That's so you clearly come from a family that gets it.
Yes.
What would you tell the listeners who may not come from a family like that? Maybe the people in their life or their lives just don't get it. Like they're not available emotionally for them to talk to. Like what kind of words of wisdom or advice would you give to somebody like that?
I definitely would encourage people who don't have like just that actively surrounding is to be able to at the same time identify who you can tell that you need that from. Like you can verbalize that too. I think because you can kind of like hope and expect that somebody's just going to be that way. But when you don't actively have it, sometimes people need instruction. And that's what I would do. I mean, I think we all have people in our lives who want to help us in some way. But sometimes people need to be led. People need to be told, I just need someone to listen to me in this moment about these things. And I understand you have a lot going on in your life, because I think people who aren't trained in mental health, the natural response is that I need to say something to you. I need to help you feel better, to make you feel better. But when you can learn about yourself, like, hey, I just need you to be here for me and listen to me and not feel like you have to do anything. And that's going to be enough. And I think if people can verbally ask for what they need, I think that's part of the battle.
It's almost as though you were in my earlier session today. Wow. Because that's exactly what we were talking about, to be able to speak to somebody, speak to a loved one or a family member, and to not feel the need to fix anything. Like, I think sometimes there's this thought or feeling that we need to say something to fix the person, or, we need to be fixed ourselves. And sometimes there's nothing to be fixed. It just needs to be expressed.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of, I'm going to go back a little because you had mentioned seeing an analyst.
Yes.
Now, is that traditional analysis, psychoanalysis, like where you're going multiple times per week?
3 times a week, yeah.
Wait, can you do me a favor and tell people a little bit about, I mean, you don't have to tell about your process, but just tell people what analysis is, the difference between that and regular therapy?
So analysis is, my licensed psychoanalysis is a therapist who works with you on processes that range the gamut from a lot of history, and relationship and psychosocial stuff. It consists of 3 days a week. I've been in with him sometimes up to 5 days a week when earlier in the start of our therapy sessions. And so it's a lot of recalling, remembering, and kind of in some ways empowering, but at the same time, it's not really. You're kind of recalling a lot of stuff.
Mm.
So that's the easiest way that I can explain it. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, and so he just fell into my lap, and so we've been working together for quite that while, quite that long, surrounding a lot of historical context of my life and of my experience over these almost 40 years.
Man, okay. Yeah, well, hey, thank you for sharing that and telling people what analysis is like, because it's a little bit more intense than regular therapy.
It is very intense. It's very opening. It is very opening. It is very... I've probably had my most vulnerable experience in my entire life in front of my analyst.
And you're here. You survived.
I made it through.
Right. No, you're, and so if the listeners have a chance to even, consider going to analysis, even though it can be very difficult and vulnerable and painful at times, it's also very cathartic. Because it's almost like you're dealing with somebody who's provides a blank slate, and then you get to kind of be reflected in them, and so it can bring up a lot of stuff.
Right.
There's no hiding. There's no hiding.
Like, I need to leave. I need this to be over now. I can't lay down anymore. I got to take action.
Yeah.
And then to come back and then process that the next day. So, what were you going through at that moment?
That's it, though. That's the beauty of it. Like,
Right.
to be able to even go back and say, okay, this is what came up for me the last time. This is, and then...
That ran out your door, literally.
Look, I've had plenty of those moments where I wanted to do that. Well, so that clearly has been very helpful for you. And even, as it kind of naturally goes into the next part of the action plan, and you had mentioned even taking action, but the introspection. Being introspective and really taking those looks inward, I think it's very easy to kind of project stuff out of us. We kind of see that. I'm finding it becoming more typical in the discourse of, just what's happening nationally in society, in our society. So to be able to do that introspective work really takes a lot of courage, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of strength. And, just in the last month for you, and clearly over the last 4 years in working with your analysts, there's been some introspection. What would you say are the kind of the aha moments or anything that you've really learned about yourself from your loss?
I think, and one of the things is, so I've been with my analyst for 15 years.
Oh, you said 15. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you an extra 11. I'm sorry for taking those away.
Unfortunately. Some of the things I think that I've learned about myself, and as much as I think that I'm strong, so I think about kind of like the work that I do. So from being a registered nurse to being a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed psychologist, I think I had gotten to this point where I felt like I had transcended, like this need for a little bit of compassion, I guess, and just thinking introspectively or thinking about a recent event that happened. I work in critical care, and I've buried or told a lot of families, like, your loved one has gone on. And I think recently I had this unfortunate experience where I had 2 patients to die within only a couple of hours of one another. And this was after my grandmother. And to help those families process that and still have some very real, raw emotions of my own helped me realize and remember why I did become a nurse and why one of the things that I've appreciated about being a nurse is that opportunity to cry with your patient, your opportunity to tell your patient who says, I'm scared, and you'd be like, honey, I'm scared too. And I'm sad for you. And to know that that's completely okay. I think in becoming a licensed mental health practitioner, we get taught about boundaries and like working on your own stuff, but the realness of kind of being a nurse and crying with your patient and telling your patient you're just as scared for them as they are. And it reminded me that I'm still human,
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that over this course of like this last month doing this introspection, kind of gave that to me.
And that's so beautiful to, because you are absolutely right. We're taught as clinicians, as mental health clinicians, we have to kind of, be separate and, kind of hold our own stuff back. I think the vulnerability and the beauty and growth is being able to share parts of your story with people to make you a little bit more tangible and a little bit more real and a little bit more, like you said, human.
Right.
Man, and so it's almost like you had this opportunity when those two patients died to really process, how it had been for you since losing your grandmother, and to be present with their families, I'm sure, and helping them work through their loss.
Right. And to be, I think, also compassionate, because I think we kind of I had gotten into that mode where, okay, kind of how many hours do you need? Because we have to like start looking at turning over the room. We have to start looking at other critical patients who need to come in, and just completely had gotten in this space where you take all the time you need. If you need to be here the whole entire 12 hours of my shift and cry and bawl your eyes out, then so be it. I'll deal with administration. I'll do my role and kind of protect you and allow you to do that. But I had kind of gotten in that place, well, I get it. I understand, but we have like these administrative things and blah, 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 blah.
Yes. So it allowed you to be a little bit more a lot more compassionate.
A lot. And connect at the same time.
And that seems to be a theme that comes up a lot more so now than I've ever heard, which is, when you're dealing with administrative stuff, when you're dealing with numbers, when you're dealing with, even social media, but whatever it may be, I think there can be a tendency for us to disconnect from feelings, from, just each other. And at some point you get to the point where it's, that your body, your spirit, your heart is calling you to connect with people on a very different level than what we're being taught.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. Yeah. Like I said, this is my vulnerable day.
Yeah. Well, openness, I feel like we kind of touched on that, which is, just sharing your story with others. And that really is a wonderful example of sharing your loss and your grief with, the family members of those who you worked with.
Right.
Were there any other instances or, of just being open and sharing your story with people? And it... Go ahead.
I really think because it's still, like I would say, within the last 3-4 weeks, that's kind of been it. I know there'll be other, other times that it kind of kicks up stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. So that leads us to the last letter of the action plan, which is nowness. Which I like to think about this one as just being present in the moment, because a lot of times we can get stuck in the past or thinking about the future, and especially when a loss is so new and so fresh. And this is by no means saying that thinking about your loved one or reminiscing or any of those things. This is by no means saying that that's bad or we shouldn't be doing that. What this is saying is